Many people have problems with art and not with reality.
So why is art different?
It's pretty simple, right?
This is knowledge, this is thinking, this is thought.
Yeah, it does something strange with your head.
Welcome to the Undergang Armchair.
Bring it.
Welcome to episode 67 of the Undergang Armchair. My name is Ando. So today on the show we have Troels Aagaard. I think it was a really interesting conversation. We talked about, of course, his work and his life. But most interestingly to me, we talked a lot about this weird midpoint one can find oneself in as an artist. It's not discussed a lot in the art world, and I think maybe it's an underrepresented position. There's a lot of talk about, being at the top or, just getting started. But there's a lot of people who, for lack of a better word, are mid-career artists. And there's a lot of decisions that need to be made at that point, too, about where one's work is heading, how one maintains relationships with galleries, with collectors, with institutions, etc. And Troels was really honest about where he was, and I thought it was really interesting. So maybe, as always, I spoke a lot about myself, and it's also kind of a running debate I'm having about how much I should speak about myself and my work on this show. I'm trying to err on the speaking less about it rather than more. But if you guys have a feeling about it, feel free to chime in. If you guys have a feeling about anything, feel free to chime in. I would like to have more of a conversation with the listeners of this show. But I will say this. I was talking to Troels about not getting any work done, and I have started working again. So Troels does talk candidly and openly about being at this point, which can be a difficult point. I think it's often forgotten. To most, it'll look like you've made it. And in many ways you have, you have representation, you're making more or less a living off of being an artist. What else could you want? But really the eternal question, as always, anywhere in an art career, is what now? What's next? What are we working on? So I'll let the man say it in his own words. Please enjoy Troels Aagaard.
Yeah. And you work your way out through the tunnel.
Mm-hmm. And you fail upwards.
Yeah.
But where did you start? I mean, you've been around for a while now.
Yeah. I actually started out thinking that I should make furniture. Instead of going to being a soldier, I refused.
There's the draft.
The draft.
Here.
I had a job instead on a museum in Kolding, Trapholt, and they have this beautiful chair collection. So I was around these chairs for 6 months and thought, wow, they're really cool.
Right, there's that total beautiful tradition of handmade furniture here in Denmark. And
exactly.
It is art, there's no doubt about it.
It is. I was completely into that, and then I, shortly after that, moved to Copenhagen.
I'm sorry, did you grow up in Kolding?
No, I grew up in Jutland, several places. But yeah. I moved to Copenhagen, and I knew I had to learn to draw, to make the furniture, to get into the School of Design. So that's my path.
Right.
I saw the path. But then along the path, some weird painter girl came along. And she showed me another world, so I completely lost track of my path.
Was it attractive because it was free? Because it wasn't like you had to follow architectural drawings in order to make furniture, or?
I think it was quite free, and it was completely different from this very strict concrete drawing world of furniture. So suddenly there's a teacher showing me what you could do with color, what you could do with expression. She was really wild. You can do all sort of stuff with painting.
Was that this woman?
Yeah, that's the teacher on this drawing class.
Okay.
Who was she?
I followed. That was Karen Serena.
Okay, is she?
She's still around, not showing much, but she's still doing paintings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a whole generation of Danish artists I don't know because I didn't come from here.
Yeah.
But you immediately just jumped over.
I did.
And then what? Then you're thinking, okay, it's the Art Academy or nothing?
I wasn't that focused, actually. I just, like, it was like giving candy to kids. They're so amazed that they can't, like, really figure out what they have.
Right. It's just party time.
Yeah. Completely party time. I think for 2 years or something.
Right.
Working and having a studio on the side.
It's funny how long it can go before you realize that art can also be like a thing you need to study or a thing you need to move on with.
Yeah.
You know, you're just like, I'm excited about making art, and then you make art for a while, and then someone finally is like, so
what do you
want to like do something? You're like, oh right, I want to do something.
Yeah. Exactly, because you're at the beginning you're such a romantic and you really just love doing the stuff.
Totally.
And you at some point get to another level. Mm-hmm. That level actually came when I moved to like a shared studio on Nørrebro. Together with Ivan Andersen.
Oh yeah, the painter. I had him on the show.
And 15 other people. And suddenly they had like something going on. They invited older professional artists, showing us how they could do an art business.
Mm-hmm. Was this completely independent of anything? It was something built up by
it was
the people
completely
there?
Independent.
Very nice.
So we had like guest teachers, Kai Nyborg, we had Peter Carlsen, we had Niels Erik Gjerdevik, and they quite slowly introduced us to the art world.
Were they just doing this because they wanted to help out?
They were paid.
Okay.
We had I think we paid like a 200-300 kroner for a weekend with 20 people. They came along.
That's actually really smart.
That was really, really, really fun and really like, hey, this is the real art world. I want to go there. And that was like my clue, actually.
That's really, really smart because it can be so hard to get access to people who know what the hell is going on sometimes. Yeah. And especially if you're asking them to do you a favor. Like, hey, just come by and talk to 15 fresh-faced 21-year-olds, you know. I wonder why more people don't do that. Because they also start engaging with you and making their own notes about who's doing what and is this interesting and, you know, this has potential, and they may mention it to someone or they may introduce you to someone or... Considering how network-driven the art world is, that makes a lot of sense.
It did, really. And these guys, they showed us like the new path. Mm-hmm. If you want to go this way, then do this, and then 3 or 4 jumps or steps. And they like encouraged us to, of course, to try out the academy, which most of us tried and did. Mm-hmm.
How many times did you have to apply?
3 times.
Yeah, so that's about right.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it?
Very much, I did.
Art school is such a funny thing. I think back then it's very open, right? You can
do anything.
Yeah.
It's very practice based.
Right.
It all happens in the studios, and you can do what the fuck you want. So
see, I think that's pretty smart. Well, it's good for people who have the motivation in order, who are self-motivated. Yeah. If you really get into smoking weed and partying, you're going to have a hard time getting much out of that education.
Yeah, you're right.
And I'm sure that happened to some people.
It did.
Yeah. Because it also, I went to art school in the States for a while, and that's where it's really, really, really expensive. And you saw people wasting all this money, and you're just thinking, oh my God.
Yeah. What are you doing?
You know, like I also had trouble focusing, but I always knew what was the most important thing, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So it's a slippery slope, especially when it's free.
Yeah.
And as they always say, you know, only 5 or let's just say 5 people per class are going to actually become working artists. And otherwise you're just stuck with this degree.
One of the first days, the teacher on the academy, he actually told us, I think we were 30 in a class, and he said up front, straight out of the box, like, 2 people out of you 30 will make it. Welcome.
Have you counted?
No. But there's a lot of us still around.
There's a whole generation of people, of young folks, like you and Jacob and Ivan and people who I believe all of you guys went around the same time to the Art Academy, Saron,
exactly.
Who actually are making it work one way or another.
Yeah.
It's not the same path for everybody.
No.
But are somehow making it work. Do you attribute that to this school?
Both the school, but I think timing is a factor as well.
Absolutely.
We came out from the academy at like 2003, 4, 5, the generation we talked about. And it was on the art market thrived, going upwards.
Those were good years.
It was quite easy to get a decent gallery, show your stuff, have a daily practice. So we started off there.
And then kaboom.
It all went down.
I mean, that's happened to me because I moved here in 2006. And so that was the tail end of the good years.
Yeah.
And I pretty much immediately started showing work at a gallery near Amalienborg, downtown. Not great, not bad, whatever. And then kaboom, and everything, I wouldn't say everything changed, but the whole we can sell anything, kind of attitude really disappeared.
Yeah.
People became a lot more selective, which you could argue for the sake of art has been good. For the sake of the quality of art being produced. There's been a huge jump from now and 2006.
Yeah. It was such a big thing, the gallery world in these years. I mean, the gallerists and the customers, they thought they had gold or diamonds between their hands.
And they basically did.
Yeah.
The money was there.
It was.
But it disappeared overnight.
Yeah.
Which is funny because it hasn't exactly disappeared, but it's centralized. There's now less spaces and less artists who have viable commercial careers.
Yeah.
And that's where the state support absolutely is important.
It is.
Because without that, a lot of people probably would not have been able to keep working.
Yeah. Which
is a tough situation. It actually happened to you, right? Because you showed at Henningsen for some years.
I did.
And then he closed and moved and changed. And,
Yeah.
And so how did you make it work when the years changed?
Round about that time, or 2 years earlier maybe, I think 2007, I was contacted by Lars Møller-Hvidt in Aarhus.
Very, very nice man.
Indeed.
One of the rare gallerists who are just down to earth and nice.
Absolutely. He asked me to make a show, and we started doing business on a professional basis. So I'm with him, and I've been there throughout the years. So that's actually...
And that was even through the tough years?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's in a good position because he doesn't have to compete with Copenhagen.
He has a lot of good clients in Jutland and even in Germany, actually.
Yeah, no, I bet. I mean, he does good work, and there's only, I don't know, let's say 4 galleries that I know of from Jutland that are kind of on the map, as a snobby person in Copenhagen would say. You know? And he's definitely one of them.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, you've just been able to stay here and work and...
I've stayed here. I have a job on the side.
Okay.
15 hours a week. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to afford the studio or,
That is the reality of it.
It is. It is.
And that's the thing, I'm trying to get out of that side job right now.
Yeah.
But, the uncertainty of it all makes it so tough.
Yeah, it's tough.
So what do? Do you sell, or do you work in the art world?
Yeah, I work in the biggest union, 3F. They have a huge collection of 70s, 80s art that I manage.
Ah,
so I still use, my art stuff or art knowledge.
Absolutely.
In my job.
Absolutely.
And that's a good thing. So I manage their collection, try to curate hangings.
In their spaces?
In their spaces.
Yeah.
And they both have headquarters in Copenhagen, and they have some schools around Denmark. I try to cover both.
It's tough, man. That's actually a good gig. I think I somehow like the idea of art collections. I think they're very interesting, cool things, and they're so personalized that it's nice to somehow manage something like that. I applied for a job for, who was it? It might have been Carlsberg, something like that, where to manage. Yeah. Because it's a powerful thing, an art collection.
It is.
In a lot of ways.
I think there are 2,000 artworks. And it's like trying to juggle and curate your own show just in another guy's space.
Yeah, and you have a catalog and, you know.
I did it myself, so yeah. I started out from scratch, taking photos of 2,000 pieces, making a database. And, yeah.
Do you see that as a direction to go in? Do you enjoy curating?
I do, but it can be a drag.
Well, in reality, if you really want to paint, then anything is a drag.
Yeah. You're right. I do it sometimes. I did the show teaching an old dog new tricks.
Oh, I think I heard about this.
On Den Fri, together with Ivan, Jonas, Lars Christensen, Torben.
I know Lars, yeah.
We had this thing called Paint Over, a group thing, where we call it fluid painting. We made animations based on our paintings.
Oh, really? And showed them in the work in the space, or
showed them a lot of places. So we curated that show together, teaching an old dog new tricks, and that was fun, but it was a lot of work.
It's so much work.
Yeah, especially with the artists coming from abroad with tax and.
My God! Yeah. Right, the whole importation.
Yeah.
Oh goodness me!
Exactly. Yeah.
When was this?
It was in 2008, I think.
Oh, that long ago. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like writing a book. Every second you do it is absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
And then when you're done, you're like, that was great, but do I want to do it again? Yeah. I don't really know.
Not on that scale, I would say.
Yeah.
It was a big show. But I try to do it once in a while, but it's not very important to me. But it's really fun doing shows that, sometimes you're into such a small area in art that you have to do the show yourself, to curate it yourself, because nobody else does it. And when you do these shows, then it's quite fun, actually.
Right, well, it brings you out into the world. And it helps introduce, I don't mean you as an artist, but it just puts you physically into a greater world.
It does. You meet new artists, you see new places, it's just it can be a lot of fun.
Do you feel like your work is in a remote corner of the art world?
It's not really out in the open. Not right now, but it has been.
Yeah.
Right now it's very much about the thing that's going on is small art-driven spaces, and they're showing stuff. I would say basically that's about process. That's my take on what's going on right now. Actually, process is so huge.
And research
and process. You're right, and it's really hard coming to that room with like a hard edge painting.
That's true. I guess I see what you mean, that your work doesn't fit into the current 25-year-old art scene.
No.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I guess, but that doesn't mean it's a corner, right? That just means that's their corner.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Although the question, it remains to be seen whether they grow up to become, I don't want to say powerful, but in positions where they can influence culture.
Yeah.
Because that remains to be seen. There was, in the 90s, the boom of artist-driven spaces, too. Yeah. And it doesn't seem like that much of that has survived.
Not really.
You know, there's Jacob Fabricius. He's doing great.
Yeah, and Wellner.
Yeah. Shout out to Fabricius and his new job. But that's the bitch, because I'm in the position you are right now, where I'm basically standing a little bit back and looking around and trying to decide where would there be space for me. I know I have to make the space myself. There isn't exactly a hole, but where is there a little bit of give that you can poke into? And on some days it's humiliating. Because you don't feel like, obviously as an artist, you feel like what you do is important. So the fact that you have to ask to be validated is not always the greatest thing.
No.
In fact, it can be humiliating. But at the same time, we live in a world in which you have to. It's not going to just walk out of the studio and up onto a wall somewhere.
It won't pop up. You have to kick in the door yourself.
Yeah. Are you good at that? How do you deal with that part?
I'm not really good at that, actually. Maybe I'm quite bad at it, I think.
Well, I mean, one thing you can say is you making that show, the teaching an old dog new tricks. Even the name kind of references this.
It does.
This issue, It does. But that's just the beginning in a way. You have to keep going constantly, and like my problem is I haven't actually been able to make new work in, I don't know, 8 months, 10 months, because I've spent so much time recently just trying to maneuver.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
Yeah, it does. Well, you make radio or podcast. I mean, you hang on to, the art world.
Well, that's one way for me to stay engaged. Yeah. And on that level, it's very good because I like meeting people. I like talking to people about art. And that's one of the things I really miss about being in art school. The greatest thing about it was you could sit around and talk about art all day long, and then all night long, and then all day long, and then you go to a party and you stand around drinking beer and talking about art. And for a lot of people that probably sounds straight up like hell. But for me and for I think a lot of people, it's a great way of digesting and developing ideas and thoughts. And Copenhagen's big enough that there's more art than I can see, and there's more people than I can keep track of.
Yeah.
So it's important for me to get out there and engage.
Yeah.
But it does come at a cost to the studio practice.
It does.
Yeah.
And
it looks like here, like you don't. Okay, this is a complete projection. I'm putting this on you, but it looks like you don't have trouble getting work done.
No, not at all. When I'm here, this is. I've always tried to have nice studios that I love to work in, and this is one of them. This is so important to me. This is like my second home, so it's got to be nice. So when I come here, this is my heaven. I really love being here, and I think it shows in the room.
Totally.
And that supports my work, or I get work done because it's nice being here. Being here is like ideas pop up all the time, actually. There are no bad ideas, it's just not enough time.
There's never enough time. But I mean, the problem also maybe is that you're producing work and then you're producing more than you actually have a place to put it.
Yeah.
Do you have that problem?
Yeah, I miss places to show it actually.
Yeah.
And yeah, my you can see my storage over there. It's booming.
Oh, that's nothing.
Okay.
But I mean, you're right. You do probably have a decent-sized exhibition over there.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
and then we haven't even talked about what Møller-Hvidt has in Aarhus. I mean, he has I don't know, 20 pieces or something. But yeah.
Well, I mean, it's good and it's bad, right? It's that balance. It's finding, just like it's finding enough time to get into the studio, it's also finding enough time to take a break from the studio and find a way to get the work out of the studio.
Yeah, you're perfectly right.
Which is where, Denmark doesn't really have it, but there are some, but there is agents who also help do that. I know New York has a pretty thriving agent scene, and I have no idea whether it's complete bullshit or not, but someone sometimes takes over that work and tries to network for you, essentially.
Yeah.
Which I guess in a way would be a dream come true, but...
It would be nice.
I
think it's hard to be producing work, being your own agent, being your own sometimes dealer, your own PR manager. I mean, there's a lot of job titles you can put on as an artist, and juggling all these titles or processes, that's a tough part, I think.
What about those 15 hours a week? Is that a pain in the ass?
It's a nice job.
But does it bum you out?
I would rather stay here.
Yeah, because I work 24 hours a week, and I'm like, those 24 hours, I'm just like, I've got so much other shit I need to be doing right now, and so it's starting to make me angry.
It is?
It's weird, but yeah. Or it's not weird, I guess it makes sense. But the fact that I'm forced to work 24 hours a week to live is really bumming me out.
Yeah.
Because I've got so much I want to be doing.
Are you still making frames?
Yeah. And it's a good job for an artist, absolutely.
I could imagine.
And I really enjoy working with my hands. It kind of relates, to what you do in a way. It's very tactile. It's very three-dimensional. And it's nice because I've had a lot of jobs where you stand in a store and sell stuff, or you're a waiter. And with this, I can see at the end of the day, I built this. Yeah. I made this. Yeah. And it's a finished product. And every week I finish a bunch of things, and I can say, bam, job done. And so I really appreciate that. It's just, if I had a 10-day week and no other obligations, I think I've got 5 years worth of work I could do.
Wow.
Just ready to go, know. And so there is that. It's just so tough to find the time. And what's a priority? How do you manage priorities, Because it comes to the point where like a studio practice could become an excuse to not network.
Yeah.
When in fact the best thing that could serve your work would be to network.
Oh. Yeah.
Does that happen to you?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, this is my comfort zone here in the studio.
Right.
But going out in the world is a bit harder for me actually.
Yeah.
Selling my stuff or my own soul, or not soul, but I mean
the package.
Yeah, the package. Yeah, I think as it is right now, I should probably get out selling my ass a bit more than staying here in my nice studio.
Get up on the stage and dance like a monkey.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the problem, because right now, my dancing like a monkey is my excuse to not make work in my studio.
Yeah.
And so, I think it's about time to stop dancing, really, now that we're talking about it.
But maybe you could do both,
Well, that's the goal, right? And that's actually what you have to do.
Yeah. There's a funny piece by Jakob Borgs.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know him. He does conceptual pieces.
He's an older gentleman, right?
No, he's our age, I would say.
Okay, I don't know.
He bought a brand new pair of Adidas shoes, and then he bought 2 pairs, I think, and then one pair he put on every time he went out to openings. And then the other piece or other pair of shoes was at home. And then at some point, I don't know how he or where he exhibited them. But the thing that putting on Adidas shoes, that was like his work, actually.
Right.
Going out.
That's a very poignant little piece there.
Yeah.
I like that.
He's a funny guy.
Let's talk about your work, though, too.
Yeah.
I guess we should mention that, right?
I think so.
We started where we left off, really, with you starting school. When you got into the academy, did your work look anything like what you do now?
No, not at all.
No.
It's changed a lot, actually.
What were you doing then?
I was doing like it looked like color field paintings, but just on a small scale because the studio I had was very small, and that's like a problem because the color field painting is based on that it's so big that you can't avoid seeing it.
Right.
You like dive into the field.
Right.
But doing small color field paintings, like, I mean,
right.
You can't really do that, but I did it anyway.
Well, there's a nice intimacy, you could say, but it's not overwhelming in the sense that...
I was very much into Mark Rothko and Barnett Newman and the epics of the 60s.
Mm-hmm. And is that a physical thing? Like you actually enjoyed the physical sense of
painting, of doing the stuff.
And interacting with it, too.
Yeah, interacting and messing around just was fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then actually on this shared studio where we had the teachers coming, Kai Nyborg, he came along, and he can be like really strict and hardcore. He said, I made some color field brownish painting. He said, when I see that painting, I would have thought you lived in the countryside.
That's a hard one in Denmark to hear.
Hard one. I was like, what?
Right.
You don't get it? And suddenly I got it, actually. I mean, he really...
He got you.
He got me.
Yeah.
He got me.
And that's good.
Yeah, and that actually changed my work. So thank you, Kai.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so do you just like next days just sit there and go, okay, fuck, what now? Or did you already have some other thoughts?
I had other thoughts, other ways of working. But I mean, when you're starting out, you're just like, I mean, anything can be... Well, one thing can be as good as the next thing because it's not validated. It's not like you haven't been discussing your new work to people. It's not like it's not really in the world, or
right.
So you can just mess around, and I really did. And after a couple of years, when people talked about the academy, and I began talking to them about it, we had these gatherings with professional artists, and suddenly there was some direction to it.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about, well, what do you need to get into that school?
So did you change your work with an idea of trying to...
No, but it was always like an issue that you have to make work that they'll accept.
Yeah.
That was like... quite hard for a couple of years.
That's a bitch.
Yeah. I mean, no good things come out of trying to figure out what other people like.
That's the problem, right?
Yeah.
And you can make really authentic, amazing work that just isn't of its time. And then suck it, work in obscurity forever, you know? Like, that's the thing. And like, how much should you compromise in order to meet the time we're in?
Yeah.
You know, like you completely, I'm kind of keep going back to the thing you said earlier about how the artist-driven spaces right now are have an agenda and are filling a lot of consciousness in the culture world right now. Yeah. And it's totally true. Like they are of right now.
Yes.
And you're starting to see some of them jump over into commercial galleries. You're starting to see... their work being cemented instead of being just fluid, you know?
Yeah.
And a wise artist probably tries to pay attention to that. And so that's what you were doing at the time.
I was.
Were you looking at the teachers at the academy and thinking, okay, this is the direction, or were you looking more at just what was popular at the moment?
I struggled to like make work that that looked even or looked as the same, because I had like popping up ideas all the time.
You mean like a body of work?
Yeah, a body of work, or just 5 paintings that look like they're made from the same artist. Because I mean, when you can do anything, then what to do?
Right. And luckily the answer isn't nothing.
So yeah, a body of work
that
you could relate to as a whole, or...
Right. But you did.
I managed.
And so how was that process of finding a path? Because I think a lot of people who listen to the show, for example, are younger people trying to find a way into the art world. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is that at a certain point, you have to make the change from working on a this is interesting to me level to this is interesting on a larger scale level. Like you said, in the beginning, there's no outside influence necessarily saying you should do this, you should do that, follow this, follow that. All that matters is it interesting? Is it fun? Do you want to keep doing it? Do that. And at a certain point, you know, like a lot of artists, a lot of bitter people say, well, art should just be free and you should do whatever you want. And that's all well and fine, but sometimes you have to serve a greater purpose with the work. It's not just to entertain you. That's fine. Do that. But you're going to have a hard time sharing that with the world if you're not making it into a greater... And that's why bodies of work are so important. Career arcs, you know, working through similar topics throughout careers even. You know, that whole thing actually does have some validity and is important.
It does.
And so how did you whittle down that process of just being like, this is fun, I love this, to, you know, okay, I got to think about this on a bigger picture level?
I think we talked about art at the shared studio, and we had these professional teachers, and they taught us just the basics of this. And I've said it a couple of times, they're really, a lot of help. But you in that process, you lose your virginity almost, actually. And that's not really nice, but instead of the virginity, you get a lot of other things. I mean... You
learn how to fuck?
Yeah.
Sorry.
You get insights into the pro art world.
Right.
So it's a good, mix.
You do have to eat your balls for a while.
Yeah.
And get through stronger.
Yeah.
You know, like that's... I got that from a stand-up comedian where he talked about you just have to go on stage and not be funny and have people look at you and be like, you're not funny, and that's your job right now is to be funny. You know, it's very similar to me. That
work your way through it. It's hard, but somebody's got to do it.
All right, and it'll make you better.
Yeah, it will.
It pretty much always makes your art better.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, you obviously found a direction. Your work does stay together. And what is it about the direction you found that makes it longer lasting, that makes you able to follow this direction?
I think that I have a big concern that is like the not the fluid painting, but the physicality of painting, the thing that you can go around it, that you can relate to the painting with your body, is very important to me. And the work, the painting and your body has always been a big figure in my work.
Is that more from your position as the painter, or is that more from the position of the viewer of a finished work?
That's actually talking about what drives me, what kind of work I like doing, what inspires me, and what makes me keep going. That's like the ability to make stuff that is interesting to the viewer and to me, of course. Interesting in like a more bodily way than normal just flat paintings. I do flat paintings as well, but it's always with a body in mind.
You do always seem to be trying to break free of the two-dimensional constraints of painting canvas on wall.
Breaking free of the frame or wall. Or,
And does that seem performative to you in a way? You know, as a person making this work, is your process kind of physically put into that and makes it into a physical object? You know what I mean? Like you have a workshop here, you're sawing stuff, you're cutting stuff, you're rearranging things. That to me seems somewhat performative.
It is. I mean, you can see on the wall now, I've been doing small sign-like pieces cut out with a wood saw. I mean, going into my wood shop is some sort of performative act, but when I go in there, I'm very much focused about the end result. I mean, I have a sketch. I have colors written on the sketch. It's not like colored, but it's very much. My work in the woodshop is very much based on the sketch, on the drawing.
So it is a two-dimensional, three-dimensional process.
Yeah, it is.
Where do you get? I mean, so the whole thing comes from a sketchbook?
Most, actually, or I mean, or a napkin. You're in a restaurant. You just sit around and doodle, and
sure.
It's mostly from doodling or. Seeing things, being in weird spaces or beautiful spaces, or I get a lot of it's very stimulating to me seeing architecture, going around unknown places.
Do you photograph at all? Do you take notes from photographs?
I use photos as notes, actually. It's really great having your phone on you all the time, being able to do like a visual note. But I'm not using photos further than that. It's only like a note piece.
Right. Well, I mean, there is something very architectural about your work.
You could say that.
You know, just forms, shapes, lights, straight lines, curved lines, organic versus non-organic shapes. Do you ever, I mean, painting has been historically a very personal medium too, to tell very personal stories. Does it relate to you personally, or is it very much more process?
Well, I would say I tell like I have like an abstract storytelling, if you can. I mean, that's maybe a bit contradictory.
Not necessarily.
But
I mean, I definitely see kind of a narrative in those signs that you're working on.
Yeah.
It would be hard to say what that is, but it is telling. It's a personal story of some sort.
It's a story, but it's really a hard question actually, because my work is both very formal and can also be very personal. It's somewhere in between, and it's not all the time that I'm actually that curious about, is it the one thing or is it the other thing.
Do you think about your work as you're going on a is it strictly a formal level when you're talking about these colors here, these shapes here? Is it?
I try to if you could say, like, tell about another piece of the work by giving it titles that like relate to the world, but also like points something otherness out.
Does that come before or after the painting is done? The title?
That depends actually. With the sign things, they have like weird names that came before actually. with the sign thing, I'm trying to like do stuff that you can recognize almost as a sign, but you're uncertain actually if it is a sign or what it is.
Well, you could read a lot into that. There's a lot of cultural meaning behind signs, and you can go the direction of advertising, or you can go the direction of semiotics, symbols, and what they mean for culture, etc., etc. But it seems like you do keep that fairly vague.
Yeah.
You're not specifically pointing to something in that.
No, it's never like pointing towards a certain place. It's more like a broadening out some issue, or a German guy called Daniel Flum. He made these signs. He took in the 90s. He took like commercial signs and stripped them from text, put them on the wall, and backlit them in light boxes, and it looked like painting, but both paintings and Kellogg's logo or Shell logo or whatever.
Right.
I mean, he was really strict and political, saying this is the commercial.
And they're recognizable.
Very much.
Yeah.
That was a big part of it. That was like his political way of saying fuck capitalism, actually.
Do you see any relation to that, or is that just of interest to you?
It's of course of interest to me when I move out on the sign path, as to speak.
Right.
I want to know who's before me, who did what, and what not to do, mostly, actually.
So is that a research thing, too?
Yeah, it is. It is. And I really like researching on various artists, and you never know what pops up. And it's more like a digging than it is research, actually. It's a bit like I'm very much into music and digging in old vinyl crates and something. And it's like that with artists too. Digging, not knowing what to find, not knowing if that you might find is of any value, or if you could use it in your own work. But the digging part is actually fun.
Yeah. That's funny because your work doesn't look... there's so many artists who find trash and make sculptures out of trash, And we all know that that's probably a bad idea. At least it'd be hard to do it in a way that would be of interest still.
Yeah.
But your work doesn't read necessarily... it seems very new. It doesn't seem very dug up, I guess. But that's just something that you put in the back of your head as you're working.
Yeah, as with other things.
Right.
I mean, it can be like the digging is like a motor to me, actually. Whether it's digging in catalogs from artists or old records, or digging in terms of research, or the digging is like a motor, and it motivates me. It makes ideas come quicker and freely, actually. And that's how it is with work. The more work you do, the more ideas you get, the less time you have.
That's the problem I'm having. Does that mean you go out and see art a lot?
I did, but I would love to do more seeing, but I try to once in a while.
There's a lot. It's tough. It's tough to keep up now.
Yeah.
We're more than can be handled.
Yeah. You get a little lazy because you can see it all on the internet. And that's,
true, but that's a problem with your work.
Yeah.
Because your work is very much a physical interaction.
It is.
I was thinking about that because, of course, I was looking at your website before we were going to talk.
Yeah.
And I was like, it kind of occurred to me that due to the nature of these two-dimensional objects pushing out into three dimensions, that is very much an interaction.
Yeah.
Like, the first thing you mentioned about your work is that it's a physical interaction.
Yeah.
So it's a dangerous... you can get a cursory idea about what's out there, but it's not the same as experiencing it.
Never. It's not. And you're perfectly right. My stuff is really hard to grasp online.
Are you thinking that those 3 dimensions are just going to keep pushing? Like, are you eventually going to, fall off the wall and crawl onto the floor kind of deal? Because you are really starting to get farther and farther away from a square.
I have some sketches of sculpture, but it's like sculpture that's coming from a painterly point of view, actually. So they're like in between. But they're not here in the world, so... Sure.
But you're thinking about it.
I am.
Yeah, because it seems like it's important to you to be a painter.
I like the physical work.
But a sculpture is a physical work.
It is. That's what my next point would be. If it's on the wall or on the floor, I don't think the difference is that big when working on it.
If you're still a painter.
Yeah. If I'm still doing what I really, really like.
Well, what is it like? What would be, what is it that would retain the painterliness of a sculpture?
Well, I'm not sure, but if anything,
it would be a feelingless game, maybe.
Yeah. No, but I'm really when I go into my wood shop, I'm there. I'm 100% there, and I put on headphones, music, and I'm almost not in the world. Actually, I'm in my own world, and that work is really valuable to me. And it takes me a lot of more time to get the stuff painted afterwards. So I'm not sure I'm that painterly driven, actually. That's quite fun, because it looks like, I'm painterly driven, but the building process is huge to me.
Well, it could also be that you are on the edge of jumping into a new thing.
Yeah, could be.
Because I've noticed that, for example, on your website, there is a lot of work. You've made so much stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know if after a while, do you ever get the feeling that it becomes repetitive, that it becomes too much the same?
That's really rare to me, actually.
Okay. Each one as exciting as the last.
Yeah, you could say that. Building a 3-dimensional thing, you have to rely on your experience when going into that wood shop. So it's not all play and fun, actually, and you are repeating yourself. But going out of the wood shop with the finished form, going to do the painting is I actually feel I never repeat myself in that process. That would be embarrassing to me personally, actually. I have to expand or push my limits.
And so it's just a building process.
Yeah.
On top of the other, yeah.
I like the thing that, and I haven't been that aware of it for some time, but a lot of people tell me when they actually look at my website, you could see the flow going from maybe 2000 and then to 2015.
Absolutely.
It's that's the evolution, actually, of my work.
Absolutely.
And that's the nice thing about the website, that's my own archive, actually.
Right. Yeah. That is the fantastic thing about the internet, is you can at a glance, if you're willing to put in the time, see a practice.
Yeah.
If they have it all there. Yeah. I have the habit of taking old shit off because I'm just garbage. Fucking garbage, get it out of here, you know? Yeah. But I also haven't been going as long.
I have old stuff that is not on.
Keep it in the drawer. Yeah, well, there is a certain point where you have to decide everything I did before this point wasn't really what I do.
Yeah.
That was just the process of getting to the starting point.
Yeah, I think you're right. You define yourself like a professional artist at some point, and that's 0.
Right.
And off from there.
The problem is I keep redefining it.
Yeah.
Okay, no. Now I'm really starting. But I mean, that's the weird thing is that motivation, there's an important thing, which is, you have to be critical enough of what you've made to make it better next time. But you have to be excited enough about the stuff you're going to make to get it done. It's this weird sweet spot where and I think the fact that you don't really have a problem with getting the work done is probably going to be one of the strongest points, because things go up and down. You have galleries you work with, galleries you don't work with. Money comes in some month, it doesn't the other. But if you can keep working, that's, most of the battle.
Yeah, I hope you're right.
Yeah, me too, because that's all.
But that's to me, that's not the battle. Actually, that we talked about that earlier. The battle to me is the other part, going out there in the world.
The selling.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Do you have a plan? What are you going to do? You're going to go to a sales course?
I think it's really hard right now to show work. I haven't made a solo show in Copenhagen for years.
Yeah.
Last solo show was with Møllervidt in Aarhus. So the last 2 years, most people have only seen my things on the internet.
Yeah.
And that's a really pity, I think.
Is that worrying you?
A bit. I try to dig up places now where I can show my stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because for me the problem isn't asking, it's finding out how to ask. Because the worst thing you can do is come out of nowhere and go, look what I made. You have to either get an introduction, you have to find another reason to talk to them. There has to be some sort of infrastructure to the question. You can't just show up and say, hey, we've never met before, I make some nice stuff.
You can't. It's like the clown jumping out of the box in front of you. Boo! Yeah, exactly. And then they'll just close off instantly. Even if it is good. Even if they might have shown it in a different context, 99% of the time they'll go, oh, no, thank you. And then at that point, you're aware of that you blew it.
Yeah.
When you go there.
Oh, yeah. That's oh my God, that feeling of walking away. Where you're just like, oh, God.
Embarrassment.
Oh, yeah, it's so humiliating, like I said before. And again, it goes back to you eating your balls, and I don't know how long you have to eat your balls for. But, I mean, do you have a plan? Do you know what you're going to try to do? Or is it just head down, keep working, and try to pop up every once in a while?
I have a plan.
Uh-huh.
I have a plan.
Is it a secret plan?
Yeah, it's kind of secret.
Oh, shit, secret plan.
No, it's a plan of being a lot more visible in the art world. Even though I'm not showing here, I can still get out there not only in a physical way, but also be visible through the internet.
Well, I mean, the good news is there is right now a bunch of ways to show work. There isn't actually one path.
No.
There is probably, I'll pull a number out of my ass, 5 different paths in Copenhagen where you can make money off of artwork. And whether it's the nonprofit art halls that you have to apply for yourself and get state funding to produce, whether it is the, there's like a new art fair in Copenhagen called CPH Artworks, I think it's called, where you, as an artist, have a booth and sell work. And you're talking about, you have to sell work for 500 to 1,000 to 2,000 kroners. Yeah. But, Jacob did it last year.
Yeah, I know.
And he did not do badly. So that is a completely gallery-free, for-profit way to engage with your audience. There was a lot of, what are they called now? The art unions, the Kunstforeninger. I don't know what you call those in English, but it's a workplace union of art buyers. Yeah. There's a lot of those who come to those events. Yeah. And that is a completely independent artist to consumer relationship.
It is.
And so it doesn't have to be, people forget that it doesn't have to be the for-profit gallery route. And I'm putting my money on the fact that now there's the Chart Art Fair, there's Art Copenhagen, there's going to be a third fair in the next few years because there's space for it.
I hope you're right.
I think there is because you have, Art Copenhagen is a basically non-curated event. If you have an art space, you can show work there.
Yeah.
Chart is an extremely curated event. We're only top of the line. What is there, 12 Danish galleries there? 13, 14 max?
Yeah, maybe. I think 10 Danish.
Yeah.
The rest
But there's a lot of galleries who don't fit into either of those places who do fine work.
Yeah.
And there's a space for them.
Yeah.
So, there's just so many options, and I think it's just finding your path. I've talked with Jacob a lot about this, how he is trying to give up basically on the fine art, highly curated, top-of-the-line art gallery world.
And go down a level.
Yeah, but it's not even down, right? It's just finding your path.
Yeah.
But that is the conception we've always had. They're the top, big-level institutions and high-price galleries at the top, and then everything down is down. Yeah. It's not sideways, it's down. Yeah. And that, I think, is probably dangerous thinking. And granted, I am a very snobby person in our world.
Too. I mean,
I like the top-of-the-line stuff.
We know the good old gallery system, it works.
It's,
if you're in it, but if you're not.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Gander was on the show and he was talking about how it's a fantastic sieve. It sorts a lot of crap off. Yeah. But if you get sorted out for whatever reason, whether it's because you're not good enough or because you don't fit in or, whatever, it's hard to figure out what to do after that. Yeah. And that, I think, is the important thing to realize, is that there's a lot of, there's an explosion right now of online marketplaces for art.
Yeah. Selling on Instagram and,
but also just a straight up like eBay style websites for selling work. And most of them, I think, are artist to consumer direct. Because I think there is also a viable consumer base who don't want to go to art shows. Yeah. They don't want to go to a gallery. They don't want to deal with the pretension and they would rather buy it like they buy socks on Amazon.
Yeah, they really dislike standing in the white cube. I mean, it's scary to them. To a lot of people, actually.
Oh. Maybe Denmark should start an online auction site for art. Well, I got enough work, but someone go ahead and start that. All right. Well, I'm glad to hear you have a plan.
I have a plan. Yeah, and it's both online and offline.
Yeah.
So it's on several levels.
And it all comes back to the hard work.
It does. Yeah.
Making the time, finding the time.
Yeah.
And working hard. Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Undergang Armchair. The intro and outro music was kindly provided by Johnny Ripper, and today's interstitial music was provided by RC. You can find links to their music and tons of other conversations with great artists on our radio tower of a website, undergang.net. This show is produced in part with the kind support of the Danish Arts Council. Thank you for joining us. If you enjoy the show, please tell a friend, and remember to keep the conversation going. We're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, we're out there. Holler. See you guys next time.